In 2019, the release of Invader ZIM Enter the Florpus was celebrated by many fans of the classic Nick show as a return to their favorite characters. Did you know they were celebrating 4 years after the Invader ZIM franchise had already made its return? Years before he created Invader ZIM, Jonan Vasquez attended Mount Pleasant High School in San Jose, California. Before he graduated in 1992, Vasquez wrote a comic strip for his school newspaper entitled Johnny the Little Homicidal Maniac. After an unfinished stint in film school, Jonan was able to get Johnny's strips published in Carpe Noctem magazine, eventually getting full comic issues published through slave labor graphics. This comic was very violent and full of strong language and themes, along with displaying Vasquez's unique art style and writing. I may one day make a video about Johnny the Homicidal Maniac and/or Jonan Vasquez, so I will refrain from prattling on about both. When Nickelodeon was searching for someone to create an edgier cartoon for their tween audience in the late 1990s, Mary Harrington, a producer at Nick, came across Johnny the Homicidal Maniac. Despite the adult content, Harrington saw potential in the character designs. Nickelodeon reached out to Vasquez, who came up with the early concept for Invader ZIM. On March 30th, 2001, the first episode premiered. Despite being canceled partway through its second season, this show had a lasting impact on its viewers. Fans were outraged at the cancellation announcement and rallied to get it back on air or move to another station. Despite this, Nick had made up its mind and the beloved show was over. For 14 years, it stayed where it had ended, getting swaths of Hot Topic merch, but otherwise, dead in the water. Then, A Light in the Darkness, a revival of our favorite characters in another format. Not counting the promotional issue, the Invader ZIM comic series officially started on July 8, 2015, continuing monthly for 50 issues before being changed to a quarterly format, and finally being canceled just like the show. I'm guessing most of the people who clicked on this video like Invader ZIM, or at least know of it, but if not, a brief plot synopsis is that Zim is an incompetent alien trying to conquer Earth with his robot dog sidekick Gur. A paranormal-obsessed human child named Dib is the only one smart enough, or perhaps crazy enough, to see through their disguises and intentions, and he sees himself as Earth's only defense. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of this video, the comics themselves. I'm not going to give an issue-by-issue breakdown of every comic and/or arc, but we'll touch on some, so spoiler warning. If there are any arcs or issues you would like me to do a deep dive into, leave a comment and let me know which one. While you're down there, consider liking and subscribing too. If you happen to check the description, you may also check out my Patreon. Issue 1 of the comic series, entitled The Returning, follows Dib, who's been rotting in his room, waiting for Zim to emerge from hiding. Dib is in a disgusting state, literally fused to his chair, and not having showered for what feels like years. When Zim finally returns, Dib tries to fight back in his smelly and feeble, or as Gur says, smeeble state, but is unable to stop any of Zim's malicious plans. He then works to get cleaned up and back in shape with some help from his sister Gaz. If the plot of this first comic looks and sounds familiar, it is because some elements from it were used in the Enter the Florpus movie. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a fan of the movie, and I've only seen it once, so I don't remember all that was taken, but certain elements were. This first issue is a great reintroduction to this world and these characters. Having been written by Vasquez, it perfectly follows the humor and canon of the show. We immediately learn things from the show, such as the alien Zim blackmails for information, and Dib having Tack's crashed spaceship, are not forgotten. This could just be another episode of the show, and I personally quote lines from this and later comics, forgetting they're from the comics and not episodes. I read the character lines in the voice actors' voices in my head because they are so greatly represented. In fact, I will give some examples of lines that I feel like could fit so well in the voice actors' voices. Gur says, "Oh, I thought you said to mow the plant some shrubs." Or like when Gaz says, "Oh, you're back. We had to burn everything after you moved out. The smell, you know." Or when Zim says, "Gar, bring me my space pants. It is time!" Or when Dib says, "Oh, you like my jacket? Thanks. I was really into the whole noir spy thing back in the day. It's easy for that to look silly nowadays, but yeah, I think I'll pull it off alright. Thanks for Hey, are you trying to distract me?" All that to say, they are well characterized in this issue. And again, these are all just within the first issue. Later issues were not all written by Vasquez, and as such, the characterization can feel somewhat off, but overall, it is pretty consistent in my opinion. Speaking of characters and their characterization, these comics allowed Vasquez and team to not only expand and explore the main characters of the series, but they were also able to focus on side characters and introduce new characters that fit the already established world and continuity. In issue 25, we get a flashback to Zim while he was young and learn some more about his training and mistakes he made along the way. In issue 15, we get a story where the kids of Zim and Dib's class at school question the origins of their terrifying teacher, Ms. Bitters, who was lifted from Vasquez's Squee comic, but like I said, that's a story for another day. We also get a few arcs following Dib as he explores aliens, magic, and mutant animals in turn. Now, I have mentioned arcs a couple times by this point, and that's right, the comics are able to tell some longer multi-part stories across multiple issues. This is established from the first two issues. They are a two-parter, and we would have some more of these sprinkled throughout the run. Another thing we are introduced to early in the run is the multiverse does exist. In issue 5, after Dib ruins Gaz's online game with her friends, Gaz is determined to show Dib the error of his ways, the errors of him being an NPC. She searches through universe after universe before finally finding one ruled by gamers. Although they return to their own dimension at the end of the issue, this showed us that they can do multiverse stories and would be doing multiverse stories in the future. Issue 46 gave us the start of the Battle Void arc, our only 4-part story. To keep this as spoiler-free as possible, all I will say is we see the deletion of every universe but our Zims at the end of these issues. Some planned episodes or ideas from the show were also incorporated into the comics. One such example is issue 8. This issue follows Dib after he returns home to find almost everyone in town overtaken by mind-controlling space pants. This issue was based off Pants, or When Pants Ruled, an episode of the show shelved by Nick, who thought it was too similar to Jimmy Neutron's episode When Pants Attack, which was in production at the time. No other issue so closely follows an unfinished episode, but people theorize elements, like in issue 50, in which someone tries to make Dib and Zim best friends, as being rewrites of unfinished episode scripts. One difference between the comics and show is their ability to vary art styles. While it is possible to do episodes of shows in other styles, it is usually time-consuming and takes more effort than it is usually worth. In comics, different artists can work on different issues without, well, much issue. For the majority of the comics run, they had guest artists come in for issues ending in 6 or 1. There are some art styles I personally don't like as much, such as the more round art done by Sarah Anderson in issue 11, but it is still nice to shake it up and you may like this art style. On the other hand, one of my favorite art styles displayed in these comics is by Aaron Alexovich. In issue 16, we see it at play. It still looks distinctly Zim, while being its own thing. All good things must come to an end, however, and so too did this comic series. On August 4th, 2021, the Dookie Loop Horror, the last issue of Invader ZIM as of this video, was released. This comic follows Dib and Zim as the only two beings aware of a time loop unintentionally created by Zim. The comic ends without the loop being broken. Another thing this final issue gives us is a montage of minor characters, both comic and show. For example, Tak, another Urkin invader, did not appear in the comics other than through her ship with Dib, but she gets a cameo in this montage. All in all, I've always loved the Invader ZIM comic series. I discovered it the day I found issue 1 in Hot Topic, and I'm so glad I did, as I had grown up having the entire show on DVD, and it had always been one of my favorites to watch. If you like Invader ZIM and comics, then I highly recommend you check these comics out. Thank you so much if you made it to the end of this video. If you like this one, why not check out my one about the original Walking Dead, or check out my Rocko's Modern Life series.